Hey gamers, Blindy here. It's March 2024 and I recently finished playing Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Overall, I think it's a really cool game. Mostly. There's a lot to like about this game. One of the cool features of it is the pawn system, which is mostly good and is really the main feature for why you would want to play this game. But overall, for this game, I would say that it could really use some quality of life improvements, and hopefully that's addressed in this upcoming Dragon's Dogma 2. So we'll briefly go over some of the info about this game, and then I'll tell you my thoughts. So before I begin, first note that I am talking about Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen. Dragon's Dogma originally came out in May 22 of 2012, and the following year, the DLC Dark Arisen was released. It has become the default name for the game on Steam. Originally, this game was released for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. It was developed by Capcom, a company that I'm sure all of you know, but just a few of the titles that you may be familiar with from Capcom are Resident Evil, Mega Man, Street Fighter, Monster Hunter, Devil May Cry, and so many more. You know them. So this game was developed by a team comprising of mostly Devil May Cry 4 developers, including the creator of this game. It was kind of a new concept for a game for Capcom that they decided to develop. If you're looking for this game nowadays, you'll be able to find it on PC, PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the Switch. And if you're looking for this soon to be released, Dragon's Dogma 2, it'll be out on PC, the PS5, and the Xbox Series. So perhaps you're looking to try out this game before looking into the second game, which is perfectly fair. I played this game on my Steam Deck, just a regular LCD version. I was able to get an hour to an hour and a half or so per gameplay. And as far as prices go, it retails generally at about $40. But it is frequently on sale at 84% off, a strange number, but it puts it down to $6.40 in Canadian dollars. So it is quite affordable, especially if you're one of those cheap people like me that only like to buy things on sale, especially on the Steam store. I played it on the normal difficulty. There's also a separate hard mode and a speedrun mode for those of you interested. And this is my first time playing the game. And if you're looking to install it, you need about 20 gigs of space, so keep that in mind. According to Steam, this game is verified, though the one thing I noticed is that it shows as Xbox controller settings when you're in the settings menu. On Metacritic, you're looking at high 70s to low 80s for this game, and on Steam, it's all the way up to 88% approval with about 31,000 reviews. ESRB has this game at an M. So yeah, blood and gore, partial nudity, suggestive themes, and violence. According to How Long to Beat, you're looking at about 32 and a half hours for the main story of this game. And for me, it took about 32 and a half hours. It was 32 hours and 33 minutes according to my game save file. Alright, so before I get further into the game, I will do my best not to show any spoilers. I will show some of the gameplay, the mechanics, a little bit of the cutscenes, but I will try my best not to show anything too important. That being said, this is your warning. So as far as the plot goes, it's pretty simple as far as I could tell. You start off with 4 classes to choose from. In my case, I chose a Strider. You can change your vocation later, which I changed to a magic archer. And early on in the game, a giant dragon comes and destroys Casardis, which is your starting village. And then you're given the task to destroy the dragon. That's it. So you are supposed to gather up a party of pawns, seek out the dragon, and destroy it. As far as the gameplay goes, it is a third-person action RPG. One of the cool features, and possibly a Capcom mainstay, I don't actually play that many Capcom games, but there is a manual, so you could check that out before you start the game. And it looks like a regular manual. You also have a bit of a character designer if you care for that kind of thing. I do not, so I just went through it quickly and chose something that looked mildly interesting without worrying about the details. So like I said earlier, one of the main features of this game is the pawn system. So there are rift stones, these large stone tablets, which you can interact with and enter a rift area where pawns reside. And then you could hire pawns to join your side. And from there, you'll have a party of 4, you and 3 AI pawns, one of them being yours, and then 2 others which you have hired. And that makes up your team. So you can have any kind of mix of characters that you want. So if you want healers, if you want ranged, if you want melee combat or something like that, you can mix that up however you like. So ultimately, for this system to be successful, your AI has to be pretty good. And in this case, the AI is pretty good. It's not great. There's a bit of difficulty with it trying to get your pawns to do what you want them to do. So I'm hoping that in Dragon's Dogma 2, they've ironed that out a bit and made the AI a bit more logical, I would say. One of the interesting features is because they're pawns and they're not actually real characters, if they get knocked down in battle, if they lose all their health, all you have to do is run over to them and touch them. Once you touch them, they regain half of their health back and they're back at action. If they're down for too long, or if they fall off a cliff, or if they take too much damage, I'm not exactly sure of those details. Sometimes they'll just disappear and return to the rift. But it is kind of nice to be able to tap them on the shoulder and wake them up again. On the other hand, it feels like a lot of the times you're really just babysitting them, because as soon as you run over to one pawn to revive them, another one falls down. So you run over to them, revive them, and do the same thing over and over again. It's kind of a bit difficult, especially when you're a ranged fighter like I was playing, because you're trying to gain some distance between you and the enemy, and you look around and see that 2 of your pawns are down. Now you got to race over to them to try to revive them, and it's kind of hard to get that range when you have to keep running back in because your pawns keep falling left, right, and center. And another cool feature of this game is the ability to mount enemies. If you're familiar with the game Shadow of the Colossus, it's kind of similar to that, where you're able to run up to certain large enemies and you have a grab ability. And you're able to essentially ride the enemy and then you can do damage from there. Now, this is only really effective for melee combat builds. So when I was jumping on enemies with my magic archer, any attack I did just kind of launched me off of the enemy. But when I was a strider, I was able to grab on, climb up, and then start doing some damage right on the back of the enemy, which was really cool. But not all of the game is all that great. And I'm going to start with my biggest gripe out of the entire thing. The quest system is really bad. I don't know why it's set up like this, and I felt like they could have done just about anything to make it better, but they didn't. So there is a quest list in your start menu, and it lists all the quests that you're in. But there is no designation whatsoever as far as the importance of the quest. So I have a whole bunch of side quests in my quest list, and I have one main story quest. And I'm not sure which one's which because I'm trying to do a whole bunch of things at the same time. And also, you may not have a main story quest because you haven't activated it yet. So knowing where to go to activate the main quest can be a bit difficult to try to figure out on your own. That being said, the side quests were absolutely ridiculous. I felt that they were unimportant altogether. I found no value in them. You gain a little bit of experience and some gold, but that's really about it. And those side quests all seem to be one of 3 things. Everybody's favorites. You have the escort mission, you have the follow mission, and you have fetch quests. So escort mission is a person trying to get from point A to point B, and you're supposed to guide them there without them dying. They will die. There's the follow missions where these characters have to go from point A to point B, and you're supposed to follow them and protect them. And those are just slow and tedious and not a ton of fun. And then of course we have the fetch quests, which will make up the bulk of the side quests. So a lot of it is just kill this number of animals, bring me back whatever number of something, I don't even care. There are a whole bunch of those, and I gave up on those really early. They just felt so unimportant. So in my opinion, I would say that if you're doing this game for the first time, stick with the main quest. Follow the main line and you will be where you need to be. You won't be underleveled, you won't be underpowered, so you should be perfectly fine as long as you stay with the main quest. If you've played this game before and you want to add a little bit more, then I would say the side quests give you quite a bit more to do, even though if it's just a bit of busy work. One thing to note is you are told not to get wet, and I don't know why you're not supposed to get wet. There's even a splash screen that says getting wet will cause certain debilitations, and I don't know exactly what they do. You have towels that can dry you off. I got wet all the time. Just don't go deep enough that you will drown, because it'll be like Grand Theft Auto where you get deep enough and you'll die instantly. And unfortunately, if your pawns get wet, they will let you know as well. They complain about it all the time. The overworld enemies are quite easy in comparison to the boss enemies, which tend to be quite hard. Now, once you figure out the patterns for some of them, it's not too bad, especially the overworld mini bosses. But the actual mini bosses, like in dungeons and stuff like that, they could be challenging and may take several tries to get through. Whereas the overworld enemies are generally easily dispatched as long as you're the proper level for them and you didn't wander away from anywhere you're not supposed to be. One of the other problems I kind of had was the camera angles. For the most part, it was good until you're into a fight, and especially if you're in trees or something like that, you're going to have problems with the cameras being behind the trees while you're trying to fight on the other side of the trees, so you're completely blocked out by leaves and stuff like that. It can be very difficult, and it means a little bit of running around to try to get the right camera angle, or just trusting that you know what you're doing behind those leaves. Another issue with the camera angle is maybe you're trying to do something around a corner and you're casting a spell maybe, and the camera angle is kind of locked where there's the wall between you and the enemy, but your character can see the enemy from where they stand. Overall, I think the visuals of this game were pretty good, except for the decent amount of pop-in that I had. So there'd be many times I'd be running through the city, and all of a sudden there's somebody right in front of me that I ran straight into just because they appeared instantly in front of me. I'm not sure if it was an issue with the Steam Deck itself, or maybe the PC port or something like that, but I found that when I was watching some of the cutscenes, the camera angles were kind of weird. It's like I was watching their waists. Unless those cutscenes were designed that way, then in that case, that's just weird. You would think that you'd be positioned more where you'd be able to see the faces of everybody, but I didn't get that all the time. So I do want to call out one particular mission. I thought this was kind of a dumb mission because not a lot was explained, and they could have done a lot more to try to help me figure this out. There's a mission about halfway through the game involving a griffin. You're supposed to follow your soldiers to this field, and you're supposed to lure a griffin out. I got to that field, the soldiers got into position, and nothing happened. When I look at the quest, it says that I was supposed to put something as bait, and I have no idea what I needed to do. I had nothing in my inventory. I couldn't see anything around. I talked to all the soldiers. I got no information. But that's when I kind of took advantage of one little quirk as far as the mechanics of the game. Because I got bored, I decided to pick up all the soldiers and place them into the circle that they're supposed to lure the griffin into. I got, 10 soldiers or so sitting in a circle, all pointing the same way, and it looks goofy. It turns out later that I figured out what I needed to do because I looked it up. If you get stuck in the same place, just understand that the goal is not to place these soldiers in the circle. Look it up if you need help. It's just not very clear as far as what you need to do. So this is one of those games that you're going to end up picking up a lot of items, and a lot of items are quite useless for you. And one of those problems though is that you're going to have a weight restriction. So if you pick up way too many items, that weight's going to build up. Now one of the cool things is you're able to combine those items to make them more potent, which could definitely help you out. But when you're out in the open world, you're picking up all kinds of stuff, and you may end up with a lot of useless stuff, unfortunately. It kind of reminded me of Persona 4 Golden, except that this time there's a weight limitation, but you still have a lot of items. So when you look at the map, it feels like it's quite empty. There's a lot of blank spaces on that map. And to be fair, I didn't go around explore a whole lot, but a lot of those places were blocked off by cliffs, making them inaccessible. So when you look at the map, it's kind of like you have these roadways going out, but there's nothing else filling in all those gaps. There's a lot of area there to potentially use. I just feel like they didn't use it all. Maybe that's something worth investigating when I go into New Game Plus or something like that, where now I know exactly all the mechanics are, and I know what I need to do, so I have more freedom to explore. And as far as the sounds and music, they're okay. The intro music to the game is kind of nice, but other than that, nothing else really stood out to me. So to wrap things up, I say overall this game needs some quality of life improvements. I would say particularly the quest system needs to be better, and the pawn AI could use some more improving, particularly with things like healing, where I felt like my pawns weren't healing me when they were supposed to. If everybody's about to die, they seem to not care about healing. The only time they really wanted to heal was after the fight was over, and I think that should have been changed a bit. Overall though, I did have quite a bit of fun with this, and I was a bit surprised at how much I got engaged with it. So I quite liked it, but there's still a lot of work to be done. I'm really hoping that in Dragon's Dogma 2, a lot of that is ironed out. They've had over 10 years to develop it, so I suspect they have. But it's still a Dragon's Dogma game, so even when those are fixed, it may not be fixed to the way I would like it to be. That being said, we don't have the game yet, so it's just a matter of time to see where they're at. And would I recommend to play this game? I would say yes. If you're a role-playing game person, if you like exploration or open world, something like that, I think this is a really fun game to get into. And if you're that type of person that likes to spend way more hours than the straight mainline game gives you, this gives you a lot of options. You could easily dump in over 100 hours into this game if you really wanted to. There's still New Game Plus to add a little bit more spice to the game, so there's a lot that you could do, and I think you could have a lot of fun if this is the type of world that you like to play in. So there is some replayability with this game. Like I said, there is New Game Plus. You could go after all the quests that you get your hands on, and then there's also achievements, and there's some wild ones as well. Like one is to get your character up to level 200. And to give you an idea, I finished this game before I hit level 50. Alright, so let's score this game. For Dragon's Dogma Dark Arisen, I'm going to give this game a 9 out of 12. 75%. And if you're looking for a little bit extra, here's a brief view of the final boss fight. Alright folks, I covered a lot, but I didn't cover everything. Tell me, was I fair? Was I wrong? Let me know in the comments. And before we head out, I'd like to thank all of my patrons. If you've been watching my videos, you'll know that I am joking. I don't have a Patreon page, but I do have a Discord channel, so everybody is welcome to join me there. We could talk about anything you want, Dragon's Dogma 1 or 2, any other game, or life in general. And I'd like to thank you for joining me today. Without you, I'm just a weirdo talking into a microphone. And if you're the kind of person that likes to hit the like button and subscribe, that'd be super awesome too. Thank you again for joining me, and I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.